Good evening. We are fortunate to have for our invocation Mrs. Amy DeWitt, who's the associate pastor at Trinity United Methodist Church, and so we're going to ask her to make her way forward. And following that, we've got quite the entirety of Boy Scout Troop 79 from All Saints Episcopal Church, and when she's completed her invocation, we're going to ask y'all to come forward and conduct our Pledge of Allegiance, and please stand with me.
Let's pray together. Wise and gracious God, we gather in gratitude for all that has brought us to this moment and this place. We thank you for a sense of love and responsibility for this city of Homewood we call home. We thank you for every family, every neighborhood, every school and workplace and community represented here, and we thank you for each voice and perspective around this room. For each one here, we pray for the ability to work together in the midst of diversity, for eyes to see the true needs and hopes of our people, for an enduring thirst for justice for all, and for wisdom to govern toward the good of the whole. We invite your guidance for the agenda set forth tonight, and we pray for the courage and the grace to follow your will and your way. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Amy, thank you so very much. Excellent. And Boy Scouts, we thank you as well. Please be seated. And as I've said to more than one person, given the agenda tonight and the mayor's presentation at the end, it's certainly okay if any of y'all choose to not stay around, but that's okay. We will call this meeting to order and call roll, if you would, please. Robert.
Yes, sir. Mr. Gwaltney?
Here.
Mr. Tangs?
Here.
Mr. Higginbotham? Here. Mr. Wolverton?
Here.
Mr. McCluskey?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mrs. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Wyatt?
Here.
Mrs. Andrus?
Here.
Mr. Wright? And Mr. Limbaugh?
Here. So we have a quorum tonight. We've got a couple of minutes to cover. Reading of the minutes from August 6, 2018. Chair would welcome a motion and a second for dispensing with the reading and approval of said minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Ms. Smith, second from Mr. Jones. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is passed. Excuse me. All right. The minutes of August 13th, 2018. Chair would welcome a motion to dispense with reading those minutes and approval of said minutes.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Gwaltney, second from Mr. Wolverton. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. And any opposed? And that is unanimous. Now we'll move on to board vacancies. I understand we have a Ward 3 BZA vacancy.
Yes, I would move to approve Ty Cole.
All right, so we have a motion from Mr. McCluskey. Do we have a second from Mr.
Second.
Jones? Any questions of them about this nomination? If there is not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I did want to mention our other two candidates were very fine, and we are going to, if Mr. Brigette can send information out about the other appointments or vacancies that are out there, maybe we can appoint them to another type board. They do want to serve, so.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate the other two applicants.
Good. An attitude of service is very important to Homewood and to this council, and so very much would appreciate that. I also understand, Ward 1 folks, that we've got the opening. Are we going to have an opening in Ward 1? Or?
For BZA?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay. When do we need to open that nomination? Why don't we do this? Let's wait until the next meeting and give you all a chance to talk about that. Okay. No. That's good.
I did have one other.
Yes.
So Ward 4 and Ward 5 on the Housing Code Abatement Board need to be filled. I'm sorry I didn't mention that beforehand. I just saw it in my notes. So we need to open those unless there's any opposition.
Do we need to, do we 2 weeks or do we have more time?
We don't have any candidates at the moment.
Okay. Then Robert, let's open both Ward 4 and Ward 5 up for the abatement board for a month.
Till the afternoon of the second meeting. And
Which would be, I'm sorry, I don't have my calendar. No idea.
The 10th,
I used to have a
September
calendar.
10th, or the 24th?
Yeah, let's do the 24th.
That'll work. Thank you very much. I appreciate you pointing that out, Mr. Gwaltney. Okay, hold on one second. All right, so we've got some agenda modification items tonight. If I can, let me add, oh goodness, it looks like 3 items and then modification of a 4th. Okay, committee referral, 210818. We're going to move that from committee referral to other new business. Then we're going to take 280818, which is a request for consideration of a modified tree and landscaping ordinance requested by Mr. Thames and Mr. Gwaltney. And that will be referred to, help me, gentlemen. Special issues?
What are we
Did you
doing?
say 2008?
No, it's 280818, 3 8s.
What all are they doing? What all are they requesting?
Modification of the tree ordinance and a landscaping ordinance.
Well,
Yeah, that would be.
So it will go to you. Okay.
okay.
So that's special issues. Thank you. I should know that. Then 270818, which is going to new, which is a request for consideration to authorize the mayor to execute the property sale. And Mayor, we don't have the exact address. It's next to 841 Green Springs. I know. 431. Okay, I'm sorry. Numerically dyslexic. 431. Okay. So it's next to 431 Green Springs, and we'll have the proper address number for that. And I'm going to put that in requested by you, Mayor. Please. All right. And lastly, 290818, which is request for ADA accessibility and crosswalk on, is it West Valley, Mr. Wolverton? On West Valley Avenue. And again, this will be a committee referral to public safety. Are there any other items that anyone's aware of that we need to put on here? If not, the chair would welcome a motion and a second for the amended agenda. Second. Motion from Mr. Wolverton, second from Mr. McCluskey. With no other discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We will move on. Consent agenda is next. Chair would welcome a motion and a second for approval.
So moved. Second. Sorry.
Okay. All right, with all due respect to my left, we're going with the right here. Mr. Thames, seconded by Mr. Gwaltney, okay? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that is unanimous and passed. Now, we're going to take at least one item out of order. This is new business, and I know we've got Lots of public hearings tonight. So 24-8-18, request for consideration of street closing for Brookwood Live event on September 13th, 20th, 27th of 2018, requested by Jennifer Gowers with GoPro Event Solutions. Do we have anyone here to speak to this? I thought we did, and requested by myself. Come forward and tell us about it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Denise Koch. I'm here on behalf of Jennifer Gowers, who is out of town tonight and asked me to be here on her behalf. She is requesting consideration of the street closings for the Brookwood Live events. They take place on September 13th, 20th, and 27th, 2018. She requests that the streets be closed at 1 p.m. and open back up at 10 p.m. They're excited to be hosting the following bands. On September 13th, Matt Carroll and the Browncoats. September 20th, the M80s. September 27th, the Lava Lamp Band. We will have Homewood PD assisting with securing the site and property, parking attendants in place, so guests of the property or the event are accommodated easily. We are also controlling the sound levels as we have done in the past so that we take care of the good neighbors who are located near the site.
All right, good. Any questions of Miss Denise while she's up here? Jennifer?
No, we're excited to have you.
Okay.
Glad to have you. Ward 5.
Okay.
I'll make one comment.
Sure, please.
My friend Stuart Moore is in Lava Lamp. All 70s, all the time.
They're great.
They are great, man.
That's why they're last. They bring out the biggest crowd. So they're.
So I'm excited about Lava Lamp. So
All right.
thank you.
Well, y'all will all have to come out and join us.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I would move to approve the
Ma'am.
requested street closings.
Oh, okay. I see. All right, motion by Ms. Smith, second by.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Andrus. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, this will be Resolution 18-111, and that is passed unanimously. Okay, next, under old business, 030718, request for consideration of sign variance at 828 Green Springs Highway. Request of Megan Ellis and Greg Cobb, our BEZ department. Mr. Cobb, would you bring us up to date? This is the KFC property.
Yes, sir. I spoke to Ms. Ellis this afternoon, and they have elected to drop their request. They're going to leave their signs as they are and only change the plastic on 2 of them without changing any cabinets.
All right, thank you. Any questions of Mr. Cobb?
So that negates the need for variance.
Move to drop.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, motion to drop from Mr. Jones, second from Mr. McCluskey. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that, too, is unanimous. Okay, we move on to 050818. Public hearing set for tonight for consideration of a variance to the fence ordinance at 300 Mecca Avenue, requested by Paul Truesdale, Greg Cobb, our BEZ department. We will start with a report from Special Issues by Ms. Smith.
Yes, committee met last week and heard the request. We voted to send this out to council 5-0 without a recommendation pending the public hearing happening tonight. Motion was made by Mr. McCluskey and seconded by Mr. Gwaltney.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. We will open this public hearing. Mr. Cobb?
I've heard I've had no further conversation with Mr. Truesdale. I don't know if he's here tonight or not.
Okay, Mr. Truesdale, are you here? No. He is not. Okay. Any other questions of Mr. Cobb at this point? There being none, is there anyone else who would like to speak to this matter? There being no one else, we will close this public hearing. All right, so do we carry it over and give him an opportunity?
No, I think we can go ahead and vote.
Okay, well, good.
I'll make a motion to approve the variance.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Ms. Smith, second from Ms. Andrus. That being the case, are there any comments? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye. So this is not passed by a 10-0 margin, okay? By the way, did we put on the record that Mr. Wolverton? Okay, good. No problem. Thank you. Okay, we will move on. 060818, public hearing set for tonight for consideration of a variance to the sign ordinance at 201 Green Springs Highway. Report from Special Issues, Ms. Smith.
Yes, committee met last week and voted 5-0 to refer this item back to the full council without recommendation pending the public hearing tonight. Motion was made by Mr. Gwaltney and seconded by Ms. Andrus.
Thank you, and we will open this public hearing now. Mr. Cobb.
Yes, sir. This is a multi-sign variance and also oversized sign variance request. I've attempted to reach the applicant and by email and by phone and have not been able to speak to them at all. This request came to us actually a month ago on July the 27th, and I've had no further communication with them. But both signs, there's two signs, both of them are oversized. And the second was there only one sign allowed by ordinance.
What's the sign variance size-wise?
Oversized and,
well, I know, but
and more than one.
Okay,
so there's two variances.
So two instead of one.
Yes, sir.
Do we have a square feet on the first?
Yes, sir. One of them is 53.92, and the other one is 84.16, and the allowed area is 50.
So we would, in essence, be approving an additional 88 square feet, give or take a few inches.
You're fast.
I've told folks the day I can't do the numbers, I have to get out of the car business. So anyway,
I guess so.
It's just the reality. All right, is there anyone else who wants to speak to this particular item? If not, we will close this public hearing. And I would ask, is there any council member that wants to make any comment about this particular item?
So, Mr. Cobb, you've tried to contact both the owner and the sign company, and we've gotten no responses from anybody. Is that correct?
I don't know who the owner of that business is, but okay. I emailed and by the address on here, and also called the phone number that's supplied, and I've not heard from them.
I understand. Well, we've got a couple of options. We can drop it or
carry it over, either one you like, whatever you choose.
I would make a motion for approval.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Gwaltney just made a motion. Do we have a second? Second from Mr. Wolverton. All right. We'll vote. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. Nay. And that is a 10-0 vote. I would point out, Mr. Higginbotham, we're finding teeth in our sign ordinance for sure, okay? And I mean that as a compliment to him. 070818, public hearing set for tonight for consideration for a variance to the sign ordinance at 215 Green Springs Highway. Report from Special Issues, Ms. Smith.
Yes, the committee heard last week about this request for a variance, voted 5-0 to refer it back to council without a recommendation pending the public hearing tonight. Motion made by Ms. Andrus and seconded by Mr. Gwaltney.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. We will open the public hearing. Ooh, excuse me. And Mr. Cobb, tell us the latest on this one.
Yes, I got some new artwork, and they have downsized their request.
Good.
And they are here today, if y'all would like to come forward. They have downsized their request. They removed one of the large sign off the back of the building. And on that bottom right, you see they talked about wrapping that to make it look like a monument. And the other option was just put roses underneath it, some kind of, it says rose bushes, but it could be whatever y'all desire, between those two legs, or wrap it to where it looks like a monument.
Well, you can do it or they can do it. Give us the facts on the actual variance.
The actual variance is the oversized sign. Mavis Discount Tire is oversized, just like Tire Engineers was. If we can see the next slide, please, Brian.
Thank you.
There you go. That's what's there right now. And the one on the bottom left, Tire Engineers, is going away. And the top Tire Engineers is just changing to Mavis Discount Tires. The variance request on that is oversized, and the ones that say brakes, tires, alignment, oil change, That's the multiple signs and all of them within our size limits.
Sure.
So, sir?
Those are also existing, correct?
Yes, sir. Are they the same letters on stay, going to change it? Okay, they're not moving, they're just staying there. Okay.
So this is actually, what was there before was 140 some odd square feet, and now we're down to 136. So it's actually a reduction
It is a reduction, yes, sir.
from where we are now by a few feet.
And then we've reduced we've changed the pole sign out front.
Yes, Ms. Smith, to a monument sign.
My
And
understand-
from my perspective, one person, a monument sign is more desirable, and I'm quite sure others feel that way as well. Help my poor memory, you're,
John Davis with Express Oil Change, Tire Engineers, and Mavis.
okay, Mr. Davis. Any other comments to make on this?
Yeah, what was it, about 3 years ago?
About that.
When we added the new signage for the Tire Engineers. We came in front of you guys and got a variance to have the signage that we did have. And in that, we took down a pole sign and put back this sign that shrunk down significantly. And with this change, we would either be wrapping it or putting some landscaping in it, what we currently have. So that was done 3 years ago to change over from a pole sign to a much smaller sign. We also got the variance approved 3 years ago to include the size signs that we have currently on the building. So what we're requesting now is we are changing over from Tire Engineers to Mavis. Express Oil Change Tire Engineers merged with Mavis Discount Tire earlier this year. And the Tire Engineers portion is, just the tire stores are going to Mavis. So that's why we're changing the signage up. So it's all within the same company, but the name is changing. So.
Any other questions or comments of Mr. Wolverton?
So just to clarify here, from the previous illustration, this is the back side of the building facing Columbiana, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so you're okay with completely on?
Yep, we're getting rid of it.
Sounds good.
All right. Ms. Higginbotham, sure.
I do have one question, and I know I'm going to be in the fly in the ointment because I'm pretty sure this is going to pass. And I appreciate the improvements you made. I do. I want to say that to start with. I'm glad the sign's coming off the back. I'm glad you're going to do a pedestal sign. In terms of the square footage, though, I guess my question would be, what is the hardship that requires you to have an additional square footage on the sign that you're going to put on there?
Because nothing, at the end of the day, nothing is changing, and we don't want to, just because we're changing the logo and the name of the business, we shouldn't be penalized for just the name of the business change when it's the same ownership group.
I guess I don't understand your
So the
answer to that.
hardship
How
would
is
be-
that a hardship? I don't.
Because if we kept it as Tire Engineers, we would continue continue in the same size we would always had. So, and right now we're reducing it from what we currently have.
Mr. Limo.
Yes, Mr. Jones.
I think he's looking for the answer that you need as much visibility to your customers who are driving by on Green Springs. Wouldn't that be the right answer?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I thought you were trying to say. Okay,
Thank you.
Mr. Jones, I think that's an excellent answer. Well, that's not the answer that I received.
We want to be
And in the case of this business, I mean, it is extremely close to Green Springs. It's not like people
Right.
have to squint to see that sign. So I understand you're changing it, and you could leave it like it is and have as big a sign as you have now. I understand that. But if you're changing it anyway, why not just bring it into compliance with our ordinance, and then we don't have to grant the variance? That's my question. I heard what you said. You want to keep the sign the same size it is, which was your answer, which is fine, because that's your answer, then that's your answer. But it's a question I have to ask about a variance is what the hardship is, and you've pretty much answered.
It's a very large building. You're correct. But if you take away and you reduce the signage, it shrinks the overall. I guess we would be when the name changes, we want to continue that customer base. So we want to keep that up. And so by reducing that, I don't want to take away our customers that we currently have. So
Sure
I want to
you
make them known that we're still there.
We understand. Mr. Wolverton, go ahead. I've got another question.
So, Greg, what is I'm not sure, see on here, the square footage of the monument sign?
Let's see.
It's not on.
It's not on there. 168 by 50. Is that inches?
It'd have to be, yeah.
It'd have to be inches.
Here it is. Square footage, it's on the bottom right corner, 64 square feet. That's measured top.
Which is
total height of the
significantly less than the existing one now, right?
No, he's asking about the monument sign.
No, I know, but I mean,
All it gets is a new face.
okay.
And then you have the option of whether you'd rather have landscaping underneath it or you'd rather have it wrapped.
Right. We were discussing a monument sign, if I remember correctly, earlier in the committee meeting, and Mr. Thames, you had some thoughts on that.
Well, I'd asked if they would be willing to proffer converting that sign into a monument sign, and so I appreciate their efforts here. Just trying to make my mind up if I like rose bushes or wraps better.
That was going to be my question of you, so. Okay, so you don't have an opinion. Okay.
I do appreciate their proffer though to improve that sign.
I agree. Any other questions of Mr. Davis? Mr.
I got one.
White.
So are you asking us to choose between rose bushes and aluminum, or are you saying you don't know what you're going to do yet and y'all are going to figure it out later?
Now, at the end of the day, we like landscaping, so we would prefer to have landscaping there to guess dress it up a little bit. But at the end of the day, you know, we had talked about this, about the monument sign. The wrap would be more in line with a monument sign. So we're basically, for our standpoint, we would rather have the rose bushes, but.
As long as they're maintained.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions of Mr. Davis? Good. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this matter? Please come forward if you would. And by the way, this and any other public hearing, please sign in with your name and address before you come up to speak, if you would, please. All right, if there's no one else, we'll close this public hearing. Any other comments from the council? There being none, Chair would welcome a motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
Motion from Ms. Andrus, second from Ms. Smith. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No. Nay.
Okay, so it's a 9-1
Two.
passing.
8-2.
9-2, I'm sorry, 9-2.
8-2.
No, 8-2. Again, because Mr. Wright is not here and certainly excused tonight. So 8-2 is the final vote.
Who opposed, Mr. Limbaugh?
112.
Gwaltney and Higginbotham. Gwaltney and Higginbotham, thank you.
All right, we'll move on to 0808-18, public hearing set for tonight for consideration of a variance to the sign ordinance at 308 Oxmoor Road, requested by Marco Perez and Greg Cobb. Report from Special Issues, Ms. Smith.
Yes, Mr. Perez came to the committee meeting last week and presented his new signs to us. The committee met and voted 5-0 to refer it out to full council tonight without recommendation pending this public hearing. Motion made by Ms. Andrus and seconded by Mr. Higginbotham.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Smith. We'll open the public hearing. Mr. Cobb.
Yes, sir. This was a Los Compadres restaurant, and where it says Maya now, it used to say Los Compadres. The restaurant Mexicano is not changing. It's always been there. So actually all they're changing is the actual name of it. But because the two go together, it exceeds our sign ordinance, so it's a one sign oversized. The word Maya does not exceed it by itself. It's a combination of the restaurant Mexicano and Maya together because of the way we measure them. So it's one oversized attached sign.
By how much?
I knew you was going to ask me that.
Well,
I knew last week, but I cannot tell you how much it is right now. I don't have the dimensions on the restaurant.
We have someone here to
Mexicano.
speak to this. Ma'am, if you would sign in first, please,
Okay.
please.
And I would also say that when we talked about this in committee meetings, there used to be two sombreros on either side
Right.
of the name of the restaurant, which are now also gone. So we're replacing, and again, the restaurant Mexicano was already there with the previous sign, so it's just staying where it was. And like Greg said, they measure it based on the full thing, even though that's not all that's changing.
I was just going to say, having driven by there today, there is a flag sign sitting outside in the green space between the parking lot and the road, which, according to our ordinance, is not allowed. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that.
We'll
Go
take
ahead.
that down.
They can handle that.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wolverton. I appreciate that. Now, and your name is?
I'm Dawn Nguyen.
I'm sorry.
I'm Dawn Nguyen. I'm here on behalf of April Perez and Marco Perez.
Okay, Ms. Wynn. Do you know what the square feet?
I do not. I just know the new signage measurements, but not the old one.
Well, give us the new sign.
24 by 99.5, so
16.58 square feet.
yeah.
That's where mine is, but we don't have the dimension on the restaurant Mexicana.
I understand. All right, any questions of Ms. Lim? I guess not. All right. Any other comments you want to make other than?
No.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Is there anyone else who wants to speak to this matter? Yes. Ma'am?
Ma'am?
Mr. Perez was going to call me, give me the name of the folks who put down all our pregnant.
Oh, yeah. What was that? I'm sorry?
Mr. Perez was going to call me.
Oh, I don't know anything about that. Yeah, I think he's trying to find out about that. Amy Martinez, the landlord, knows who would be cutting those trees. And I have her info.
Those are the city's crepe myrtles.
Amy Martinez is the,
They were, correct.
We need to resolve
you're
that.
welcome.
We do, I agree.
Oh, I know.
We can make this a condition of doing that.
That's,
Well, that didn't have anything to do with them. They didn't cut the trees.
Yeah, he just said he was going to find out.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, they didn't cut the trees.
I understand. Someone did. All right, anyone else want to speak to this matter? If not, we'll close this public hearing. And the chair would welcome a motion and a second.
I would move to approve.
Second.
Motion from Ms. Smith, second from Ms. Andrus.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I try to be as consistent as I can on these sign ordinance things because I think it's important to be consistent. I do happen to think in this case, I'm just sharing this opinion before I vote, I do happen to think in this case that we're dealing with a technicality because of the sign that already was there as opposed to putting up a new sign that did not meet our ordinance. I'm still going to abstain because I still have some questions about it. I'm still not sure that it meets our, but I'm not going to vote no because I think there's a gray area here. And I just wanted to make clear that I'm not trying to pick on people by enforcing our sign ordinance. I just think people should try to do it, and I think a good faith effort's been made here, and I think it's just a technicality because of the existing thing.
I understand.
So,
Mr. Wolverton?
I just wanted to clarify. The Maya is how big square footage?
16.58.
16 total.
Yes, sir. So what they're putting up is much smaller than what was there, but we count everything as it's a big rectangle to us, the way we measure things. So, yeah, when I first looked at it, I thought the same as Mr. Higginbotham. That's a little bit gray because we're shrinking down and we're leaving something that's been there for, what, 15 years?
Decades.
Long time ago. Anyway, but when things get gray, I bring them to the council.
I understand. That's
if I may.
what. Yes.
I understand the argument that this is the way the sign has been for a number of years. However, with the changes we're going to see in Green Springs in the next 5 years probably, if we don't start making a concerted effort to bring those signs into compliance, we're going to have the same issue going forth, and we'll never get it fixed. Then we'll have a completely redone Green Springs Highway with signage that is not where we'd like it to be, not in compliance with ordinance. So just bear that in mind as we prepare to vote.
That's a fair statement. And I think it's also a fair statement that Mr. Higginbotham made recently that, you know, if we're going to approve every variance, then we don't have a sign ordinance. And I think that's something for us to keep in mind as we go forward. And I say that out of respect. I hope you know that, Mr. Higginbotham, not no criticism. So with that, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. So we have 8 for, 1 abstention, and 1 no. All right, this will be Resolution 18-113. Move on to 090818, public hearing set for tonight for consideration of a variance to the sign ordinance at 428 Green Springs Highway. Report, Ms. Smith.
Okay, I think this is our final sign ordinance public hearing for tonight. We met last week and voted 5-0 to refer this item back to the full council without recommendation. Pending the public hearing tonight, motion was made by Ms. Andrus and seconded by Mr. McCluskey.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. We'll open this public hearing. Mr. Cobb.
Yes, sir. This is multiple sign variants for Smoothie King. They're here tonight. Their crown, when you first looked at the first drawings we had on it, that looks like it's all one sign, but it's really not. The Smoothie King is sitting on the awning, and the crown is on the building. And the crown is 32 square feet. Up until last week, I thought it was all one sign because it's not three-dimensional here. But you've got multiple signs. They have a monument sign out front also that is in compliance with it, so it's a multiple sign variance. Because the crown is part of their logo, although it is art.
No, keep going.
Okay, it still is a sign to us.
Well, it is, no question.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's no size variance. This is strictly based on the number of signs.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You're allowed one attached, one monument. So they've got the monument, and that's actually two signs. Right.
So it's a second painted attachment.
Yes.
You know my question.
Go ahead. How big is it?
Yes, sir.
I know
It's
that.
like 32.5 square feet,
There you go.
to be exact. 78 by 60.
Yes.
But it's more of like an...
I understand, but it's still by law or by ordinance, it's still a sign.
Got it.
And I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm trying to present facts as we're responsible for. For everyone's benefit that's here, your name is?
Oh, Alex Grush with Smoothie King.
Okay. Any other comments to this other than what you said to the committee last week?
No, that's pretty much it.
Any questions? We've had a week to ponder and think about this.
I do. Oh, Mike.
Good.
Go.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I simply have the same question I had for the other applicant, which is how would you describe your hardship as to why you have to have two signs as opposed to having a single sign that had both items on it?
Well, I mean, this is basically, I mean, we're a corporation, so corporate-wise, that's our design concept. So that's kind of that's what they put on the buildings all over the world as they're doing standalone drive-throughs like this. But yeah, it's just a graphical design that they add to the logo for the building. So it's catchy, it drives people in. It's a good-looking building. I mean. So
if I were to summarize what you're saying, this is totally consistent with other signage for Smoothie King around the country?
Yes.
I'm not. I'm. That's what you said. I heard that. No. I'm just. All right. Sometimes I need a little clarification. Mr. Gwaltney?
If it were solely this sign, I would understand, because it being two and offset, that kind of makes common sense. But in the renderings you showed us last week, that right side of the building is entirely glass. And as I pointed out, there's a large sign in there that will be visible from the highway. So I know, well, according to our ordinance, that's not a sign. It really is a sign because it's visible from the road. It's just a technicality. So.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be painted on the wall. It's supposed to be painted on the wall on the inside.
Mr. Gwaltney, I think clarify this for me, Mr. Kendrick, but I think we have to go back and look at kind of the other side of the argument we were talking about with a previous issue, and that is if the law says, or if the ordinance says it's not a sign, that it's not a sign. Would that be correct, Mr. Kendrick? Yes, sir. Okay. Any other questions?
So does that mean that it's not a sign?
Not
the one behind the glass.
The second one that's painted on the inside of the building. Remember, you have the glass fascia, and then it's painted on the inside. There's no reason to see that picture because, again, by law, it's a non-issue.
So, Jennifer, the building is like catty corner to the road.
Got it.
How big is the Smoothie King sign by itself?
The lettering?
Yes.
23.4 square feet.
Total?
Yes, sir.
And then the crown was how much again?
32. the two of them separately add up to our 50, but because of the way we'd measure them, like I said originally, I thought it was one sign, but it's not.
So with the crown, where are you measuring? Are you measuring from the roof line up to the tip of the crown, or?
Yeah, you want to see it? I got it.
He's drawn a box around the crown, like, that's the way we measure them.
Okay.
We make it into a rectangle. Total height times total width.
I gotcha. And I guess I'm struggling a little bit with why it has to be offset versus doing like the logo on your shirt, for example, where those are basically, you know,
Is there a way to
overlaid.
connect to that?
No.
Probably not.
If we had a side view of the awning, you could see that awning is projecting away from the building, and then the crown is on the building. It's got
Right.
an awning that you can walk under to be out of the rain.
Sure.
There's your side view of it right there.
Okay. Any other questions?
I guess I'm just wondering why the crown can't be shifted to be in line with the rest of the Smoothie King sign. Like you said, together they would add up to 50.
No.
Oh, you're saying
60.
above the actual Smoothie King lettering?
Yes.
More centered with the
Yeah,
building?
more like the logo on your shirt, for example.
Well, then your measurement,
He's saying, could the crown be over the word Smoothie King?
You know, our architect with Smoothie King, these are kind of the plans that they've drawn up. That's just their design concept. I mean, I'm not saying that couldn't be a scenario that we could do, but.
But it would still have.
Would it still be oversized, I guess?
Yes, sir, it would.
It would be barely oversized, but it would still be two signs because one is on the red fascia and one is on the.
They're separate, yeah.
Yeah, they are separate.
They're not
No
connected.
matter where it's situated, they're two signs. It's just, there's no.
Yeah, I guess I just was wondering if there was a way to actually make them and bring those in.
Not because one is on, one is painted and one is lettered. No. I mean, it's a good question. Any other questions?
I think it looks arty.
I'm sorry.
I like it. I think it looks arty. I like that it's offset.
I understand. All right, is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak to this matter? If there is not, this public hearing is closed. Ms. Andrus?
I think it looks nice, and I think it's a corporate store, and that's, you know, it fits within the ordinance. I know technically it's two signs, but I think it's offset to look funky, and I think it does, and I like it, so, my comments.
Is that a motion?
I move to approve, based that on the fact that it looks funky.
All right, so we have a motion from Ms. Andrus, a second from Mr. Wyatt, and Mr. Higginbotham has one more comment.
All I wanted to say is I'm very happy to have Smoothie King in Homewood. What I may feel or not feel about our signs and sign ordinances, I am very happy to have Smoothie King in Homewood, and I hope y'all are here for many years and have great success in that location.
I appreciate it. We're happy to be here, too.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay, so we have 8-2, and the two Ward 2 reps voted no. With that, welcome to Homewood, and we are very thankful to A, have you as a business, and B, have that property looking so much better than it did previously.
Yeah.
So thank you
Yeah, I
very
saw it
much,
before.
okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, 12:08:18, public hearing set for tonight to consider declaring the property located at 1575 Valley View Circle a public nuisance due to the violations of ordinances 1910 and 1750, excessive growth. Scott Cook, our code enforcement with our police department. Report from you, sir.
All right. This property is owned by Series D, 1575 Valley View Circle, out of Estavia. It appears to be a rental home. We have had issues before with the backyard about a year ago, but it was under a different owner at the time. You can see from the pictures, front yard looks good, but the backyard is really bad. I've sent the notices out. Let's see, one of them came back so far undelivered to the owner. Hadn't got back the other one on the public hearing. Have had no contact with the occupants or the owner.
What is your What is your recommendation, Mr. Cook?
We declare it a public nuisance and send crews to clean it up.
Okay. All right, let me open open the public hearing. Is there anyone else here to speak to this particular matter? Yes, if you will, please sign in. And then state your name and
Yes, my
address.
name is Mark Waits. I live on 1517 Valley View Circle. My house is located about 4 houses just kind of west of where the 1575 property is. Both my wife and I live there. We're one of 29 families up on the circle with that. It is my view that the 1575 property is a nuisance to all the residents on the circle, the neighborhood. What I've been witness to over several years now is a repeated behavior of lack of failure to maintain the property properly with that. What I ask of the council is your very careful consideration and support to declare it as a nuisance. And then as Scott mentioned earlier, there is the history involved with that, with the fact that this is a repeat appearance before the council with that. Fast forward to today, 1 year later, the weeds are back. And we all recall the storms that happened at the June timeframe a little while ago with that. There were 3 trees that fell subject to that. It is my belief, as I'd like to offer for comment, that there's a connection between the lack of maintenance, particularly in the backyard where the trees originated and fell down with. But we had a little bit of a mini crisis, as many of the residents did with Homewood with that. So in closing, just again, I ask for consideration and support from the council to declare the property a nuisance on that.
Thank you, Mr. Waits.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions of Mr. Waits? Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am. And your name is?
My name is Margie Hunt. I live at 1515 Valley View Circle. I'm a longtime resident of that area, and so, yes, since it's been a rental house, it's been a problem all along. Nobody takes responsibility for that backyard, and it's the entrance to our neighborhood. It's an eyesore, and right now the weeds are, you know, probably head high, and since it's so dry, it looks like a desert with, you know, cacti, and the rest of it is just a mess. But it's just unsightly all the time, and we would appreciate it if we could have it cleaned up, because it is the entrance to our neighborhood. And those of us who try to make it a nice place to live are a little bit frustrated by it, so we would appreciate your help. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hunt. We appreciate it. Is there anyone else to speak to this particular matter? If there is not, we will close this public hearing. And comments from the council?
I would just like to add that in addition to Mr. Waits and Mrs. Hunt, I probably have had 6 to 10 emails from about 6 residents on this property over the last 2 years. It's been a consistent issue, and it needs to be taken care of.
I understand. Mr. Kendrick, my question would be is, what more can we do other than obviously address this particular item?
Nothing at this point, especially if there's a new owner. Certainly down the road, we can take additional action.
Okay, good. All right, did I close the public hearing? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Good, thank you. All right, Chair would welcome a motion in a second.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Mr. McCluskey, second from Mr. Thames. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is 10-0, and that is Resolution 18-114. 130818, public hearing set for tonight to declare. Yes.
That'd be 115.
115?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Yes, I see that. My fault. Thank you for correcting me. All right, 130818, public hearing set for tonight to consider declaring the property located at 218 Summit Parkway a public nuisance due to a violation of ordinances 1910 and 1750, excessive growth. Let me go ahead and open the public hearing. Mr. Cook.
Yes, I contacted, sent notices out, posted the property. The owner cleaned up a good portion of it. Never did call me about it. We still had some issues. Set it for a public hearing. After that, he called me, wanted to know what else he needed to do. We met last Friday, he started having the landscaper come in and spruce up the kind of the natural areas. Over the weekend, he's not quite finished. He came up here tonight to attend the council meeting, the public hearing, but he had some other issues he really needed to get to, and I asked that he asked, and I go along and be carried over. He is making a lot of progress. It'll be taken care of by the next council meeting, I assure you.
And just for additional information for the council, he has reached out to me by phone, and his reason for not staying tonight is he's got some respiratory issues that really didn't allow him to stay. For what it's worth, he is reaching out to us
Right.
and making an effort. Anyone else that would like to speak to this particular matter? If there is not, we will close this public hearing, and Mr. Cook's recommendation that we carry this over and to give him, we'll call it one last opportunity to get this property in the condition it should be, and we'll do that. All right. Thank you. Hold on just a second.
Question.
Sure.
Are we carrying over the public hearing or just carrying
No,
over
no,
the
no. We
item?
closed the public hearing.
Okay.
We're
okay.
carrying over the
Just
item.
item.
Thank you
Thank
very much. No, no, no. Thank you for clarifying that. 1408-18, public hearing set for tonight to consider declaring the property located at 1117 Hardwick Lane a public nuisance due to a violation of ordinances 1910 and 1750, excessive growth. And we will open this public hearing and look forward to Mr. Cook's report.
Oh, yes, this property is owned by Nicole Johnson, same address, 1117 Hardwick Lane. It appears to be non-occupied at the current time. This has been an ongoing problem with the yard. If you'll remember, it came before the council before about the litter and open storage. Y'all declared that a public nuisance. We did have crews go in and abate that. It did come up once before, public hearing, declaring the excessive growth as a public nuisance, but the day before the hearing, someone came and cleaned it up, so that was dropped. It was abated. Since then, it has grown back up, and we're here all over again. So you see the pictures there.
So your recommendation is?
Declare it a public nuisance.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cook. All right, is there anyone else who would like to speak to this particular matter? And if so, if you'd sign in first, please, ma'am. We always like to have a record of those who have spoken. And your name and address is?
Elizabeth Stollenbarger, 1108 Hardwick Lane.
So you're just down the street.
I am across the street.
Thank you.
From this property. The property is actually a corner lot, so there are actually two fronts. I speak in support of this motion. The house has been abandoned. There's been no one living there, to my knowledge, since October of last year.
Whoa.
The grass is 33 inches tall.
Thank you, ma'am. Those are facts. Anyone else who would like to speak to this particular matter? There being none, we will close this public hearing. And the chair would welcome a motion.
So moved.
I will make a motion, but I'll second his motion. But I do have one question. Have we ever had any contact with Ms. Johnson, Nicole Johnson?
I can speak to that a little bit. We've had at least 3 lawsuits with her.
Oh, okay.
And it's been reported in court she's moved to Alaska. That's all I know.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Kendrick, you mentioned with the last case that there may be some additional steps the city can take for repeat offenders with the same owner. Is that an option here?
Well, a history of violations, you can file a circuit court lawsuit and ask the court to declare it to be a nuisance. But again, it's going to be difficult to find her because the other 3 lawsuits we have with her, has been now dismissed because she failed to prosecute.
Well, could we put this on our list of properties to be abated since it's abandoned?
If it's not a safety hazard, probably not. What happens if the circuit court declares it a nuisance?
Essentially, then you take the same relief.
You still just impose a lien.
Right. At least no one can find it.
And it's just another lien imposed on the property, essentially.
And you literally don't even know if this person's alive. I mean, if you can't find them.
Yes, and I've only told you it's been represented to the court she's alive. I don't know that.
I see.
I do know she's not around. It hasn't appeared in this case.
So who tended to the
All right.
property in October?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, is it
Wolverton.
possible to inspect the premises a little bit more carefully to see if there are any openings into the home or
We can.
windows that are ajar,
We
that
can,
kind of
but
thing?
we can.
Or undesirable animals.
And do we know who tended to the property in October? Who was?
I would anticipate the property to foreclose at some point.
Yeah.
That's speculation.
Well, but if it's paid for,
I don't believe it is.
okay, well, there you go. You can get that record. There's more investigation that can be done. Again, this motion was by Mr. Higginbotham, second by Ms. Smith. We'll delve into this further. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
And this is resolution 18-116, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. All right, we'll move past public hearings now. 340618, request for consideration of Historic Preservation Commission issues requested by Brittany Sreehan and Barry Smith. Report from Finance.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. The Finance Committee met, and this is just an acceptance of the report from the Preservation Commission. So we're just accepting the report with no action required by the council.
Right. Should we have a vote to approve it, Mr. Kendrick?
Yes, sir, you certainly can.
Well, sure, let's do that.
Okay.
So we have a motion from Finance that also carries its own second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We will accept that report. 010818, request for consideration of budget amendments, requested by Chief Rawls, Berkeley Squires, Robert Burgett, our Finance Director, Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. The Finance Committee met, voted 5-0 to recommend approval of these budget amendments. Motion was made by Mr. Thames, seconded by Mrs. Smith.
All right, we have a motion from Finance, which carries its own second. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is unanimous. We'll move on to 180818, request for consideration to contract for citywide traffic study. Andy Gwaltney and Britt Thames. Report from Finance, Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. The Finance Committee met, voted 5-0 to recommend contracting with Volkert under their current contract that's in place, so 5-0.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second from Finance.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Because I made other council apologies on this one, but this one got under my radar, let's work on the budget, but this is one where I thought we had already notified Aldott that was the one that we had chosen.
Say that again, I'm sorry. The noise, hearing issues.
No, that's okay, I'm kind of under the weather, but it was my understanding that with it being a service contract, we had told Aldott that our choice was Skipper on this.
Well,
It can't be changed.
no. We, as I understand it, we offered it to Volkert and Skipper both, and Skipper and Volkert was the lower price. Am I correct? I mean, tell me if I'm not, if it's bad information.
Yeah, they, and Mr. Thames has some information on this as well. It was under the Volkert contract to handle it. I think we were waiting on Skipper, but we didn't really get any.
No, that's not exactly right. We were discussing something else under the current contract, but Mr. Gwaltney spoke with Mr. White about this.
Yeah, so
Mr. Pugh.
when the topic came up for discussion, we were unsure of the status of the traffic study. So I reached out to Mr. Wyatt or Mr. Pugh to inquire about it, and he said that they had indeed submitted Skipper's name to Aldott, and then he offered that if we wanted to go a different direction with Volkert, which is what we had discussed amongst council, then approve of this motion, that we could go that route. So that's why it had changed from Skipper to Volkert. We had sat down and had a discussion with Volkert about the things that we could put into the traffic study, and the creativity we could take, and some of the ordinances that we could also craft to help with traffic calming and pedestrian walk paths and stuff ped walk paths, or ped bike paths. There we go, got it out. So we felt like that was a better option for us to pursue for the city.
Well, I understand. The question I would have is the Skipper organization thinking that we've committed to something that we in fact have not committed to? Is that?
My guess is they probably do think that.
Okay, well, why don't we do this? Before we approve something that's got some question marks tied to it. I mean, I want to move on with this as you do as well,
Yeah.
but.
Well, I guess I'm wondering if Skipper thinks that, why hasn't Skipper started this?
I'm not sure.
I mean, it was 6 or 8 months ago.
Mr. Cobb, please come forward.
We made the selection through DOT for Skipper back last winter, and they fully expect to have this contract. We have not signed the contract, is why they have not moved forward with the work. Last week, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about that, and I had thought, and I said it in open meeting, that we had signed a contract in the spring. And in fact, we had not signed the contract. It had been sent to us. Where it went, nobody knows. I've searched my emails. I said this in committee last week. I can't find it in my emails, coming or going, because typically as soon as I receive them, I send them to Mr. Kendrick. I never sent it to Mr. Kendrick, which makes me believe I never had it. But DOT told me they sent it to us in the spring. That's the reason it's not signed, because we don't have it in hand. I believe today it came in. Is that correct, Mr. Wyatt? Today, finding all that stuff out, Mr. Wyatt tried to straighten it out and got with DOT, and they sent us another copy. So we now have it in hand. But all the time, the DOT said they gave it to us in the spring, and none of us can find it. So I don't think we ever got it, which on large documents, a lot of times our firewall will block them.
I see.
And so we don't know. But I knew that I stated a few weeks ago that we had signed it in the spring, because I really thought we had. So we've already made the selection through DOT for Skipper. We've turned in their man hours to the DOT to be reviewed, and DOT has provided us with the contract. So that's where we are today.
I understand. Mr. Pugh?
Could I just point something out real
Sure.
quick? The agreement that I've got from ALDOT is the funding agreement. I did reach out to ALDOT and ask them what it would look like if the council decided right now to change, because we did talk to Skipper earlier in the process. We even sent a letter to ALDOT, a selection letter, letting them know that Skipper would be our consultant. Skipper prepared a full mandate proposal, and we've submitted that to ALDOT. They've not begun reviewing that yet. They won't begin reviewing that until they get a funding agreement from us. So, per my conversation with ALDOT, if we were to change, or if the council or mayor were to choose to change consultants right now, it really would not upset the process. It would just be a matter of paperwork. Now, is Skipper under the impression that the job is his? I believe so.
I understand. It's a failure on our part collectively to move more aggressively on this than we need to, because we need the traffic study. I think every one of us agrees with this. But we also need to speak with one voice on this, and this has created a bit of a problem. What I would say to my Ward 1 fellow council members is, as badly as we need this, we need 2 weeks to straighten this out, because we don't need there to be any misunderstandings or miscommunications going forward. So, Mayor, I'm going to carry this over.
I would, but I would also apologize to the council, because I've always said, look, we dropped the ball on something, and I think clearly, even though it had been discussed, I don't think anybody thought to say, where's the contract? I just think it would probably have been a done deal, but it hasn't been. So it's clearly the council's prerogative to choose who you want to on the project, but if we go a different route, I think I at least deserve to give Skipper a call.
Well, I understand, and I don't disagree with you at all, Mayor. So let's carry out this over for one meeting, only one meeting, and let's see if we can get all this straightened out, okay? Thank you, I appreciate it.
Mr. Limbaugh?
Yes.
On this issue, Mr. Pugh has sent me today a copy of what he called the funding agreement with AlDOT. So at some point, you're going to have to approve the mayor to sign that agreement with AlDOT, irregardless of who you might use as your consultant. So I just bring that to your attention because he sent it to me today.
Okay. Well, I mean, we still got some work to do. Ms. Higginbotham?
I just have a quick, just a quick question about, I was going to have tonight anyway, about the scope of work. I think I heard Mr. Gwaltney mention this. So if we went with Volkert, they were going to include in that some sort of traffic calming recommendations, I guess a menu or whatever you want to call it. If these are things we can do, and where we recommend those things be done. I just want to make sure I'm not putting. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. All right, we'll carry that over. 1908-18, request for quarterly update from Homewood Chamber of Commerce, report from Finance, Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. The Finance Committee met and accepted the report from the Executive Director, Ms. Drennan.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate it. Just for an approval, this carries a motion from Finance. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we accept that quarterly update unanimously, and we'll move on to 020818, a request for consideration of an ABC 040 retail beer on and off premises and an 060 retail table wine on and off premises for Poke Fresh 2 LLC, doing business as the Ono Poke, located at 934 Oxmoor Road. Report from Public Safety, Mr. McCluskey.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee met last week, and we do have the letter for the background checks from police, but we still are missing the letter from the fire department. But as we've done with many of these other ones, I would move to having no objection to the issuance of the license pending the letter from fire.
All right, we have a motion from Mr. McCluskey. Do we have a second? Second from Mr. Wolverton. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is 10-0-4. Thank you very much. 040818, request for consideration to work on the city property to create an say that word. Orienteering. I don't know that I've ever said that word in my life. Course on the Homewood Forest Preserve hiking trail. Requested by Wyatt Pugh, or BZ, and Aiden Wright, a life scout with Homewood Troop 97, located at Trinity Methodist Church. Report from Special Issues, Ms. Smith.
Yes, committee met last week and heard the presentation from Aiden, who is pursuing his Eagle Scout rank, and he'd like to do an orienteering course on the Homewood Forest Preserve hiking trail, which is on Armory Road, off Armory Road near the high school. And he was very enthusiastic in his presentation, and we voted 5-0 to recommend approving him to work in the right-of-way there.
So we have, thank you. We have a motion from Special Issues. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is 10-0, Resolution 18118. And I would point out to our scouts, see, we like to find projects that are mutually beneficial to our scouting organizations as well as our city. So thank you very much for that. Yes.
He handed out a map of some kind. Does anybody have a copy of that? Thank you.
There you go. Thank you, Mr. Higginbotham. We appreciate it. All right, we move on to the committee referral agenda. Chair would appreciate a motion and a second for approval.
So moved. Second.
All right. Motion from Mr. McCluskey, second from Mr. Gwaltney. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is passed. Now we move on to other new business that is remaining. 210818, well, wait a minute. Yeah, that's right. Okay, that's right. 210818, request for consideration of an ABC 020 retail restaurant retail liquor for April Perez, DBA Maya Mexican Restaurant located at 308 Oxmoor Road, Suite 104, requested by Robert Burgett, our acting city clerk, and our Public Safety Committee. And I'm told there are, and I'll let Mr. McCluskey say this, there are what? No?
There are no objections from police or fire, so I would move to having no objection to the issuance of the license.
All right, we have a motion from Mr. McCluskey. Do we have a second? Hold on, second from Mr. White. Mr. Wolverton would like to speak. Go.
I just wanted to know what our reassurance was that that flag sign is going to be gone.
Well,
Mr. Cook's going to, Mr. Cook's going to handle that.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Cook?
Were you here when we mentioned there's a flag sign out in front of the business? Yep. Okay, thank you.
All right, did we vote? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is passed unanimously, 10-0. All right, 230818, request for consideration of an ABC 140 special events retail for Red Clay Bar and event services doing business as Magic City Mac and Cheese Festival, September 9th, 2018, located at 780 Brookwood Village parking lot, requested by Dino Saris and Robert Burgett, our acting city clerk. Mr. McCluskey.
Yes, we have received letters from both police and fire, so I would move to having no objection to the issuance of the license.
All right, we have a, do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Smith.
It's a mac and cheese festival. You better second it.
Oh, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and that is passed as well. Two more items. 250818, request for consideration of approval of vouchers for a period of August 13th, 2018 through August 26th, 2018. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Troop 79, for attending.
Thank you very much.
I reviewed the vouchers for this period. Mr. Burgett had several questions that got answered, so I would have moved for approval of the vouchers.
All right, we have a motion from Mr. Jones, second from Mr. Higginbotham. Any further discussions? There being none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is Resolution 18119. Is that correct, Mr. Kinder?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, final item is 260818, which is request of Mayor's fiscal year 2018-2019 proposed budgets for general, capital, debt service, and special revenue funds. Mayor McBrayer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, I apologize for my voice tonight. Too much sinus stuff going on. So, somebody did a good job dismissing the scouts before they had to go endure this.
They did.
Very good. So I know Chairman Jones always talks in his finance committees about having a really high-level overview of the budget. So that's what we're going to do this evening. And then with the full understanding that y'all will set some times to start going through literally the hundreds of line items that we've already gone through. So I'll just take a quick second to thank JJ and my department heads and Robert for the amount of time, trust me, the amount of time that it's going to take me to present this is not indicative of the amount of time that it took to put together. So I say every year, and it'll never change, that it's probably the most important thing that my office does is to present a budget to my neighbors on the council, mainly because it kind of tells the direction of where I'd like to see our city go. It's also very important, and it's much easier now than it was in 2008 when I started this, giving you very accurate numbers. So while we may disagree on a project or may have priority over one or another. What I look forward to in the process is us not having to really disagree on the numbers. And you know me, if anything, it will be too conservative of a budget. But it sure makes it nice at the end of the year that we'll talk about in a few minutes. So with that, we'll get started. Of course, it's just the 2018-19 budget. I am not going to read through all these line items unless somebody just wants to listen to me read through them all. But this basically in our general fund, unassigned, a little over $13 million. You see the other debt service fund, a little over almost 11. Special revenues, just under 110 million, for a total of $153.7 million. So the operating results showing all the way back to 2013, the numbers that you see in green are the audited number. That's what we ended the year with. But there's, if you look at the notes up underneath, what's not showing in green is if you add the notes together, what we actually finished with. So just all the way back to 14, if you take the note D, which is going to include in all of them our bonuses and transferring some money over into capital before the end of the year, it'll show that we ended the year with a $410,000 surplus. But had we not given bonuses, had we not transferred money over into capital, we would actually finish that year with a $1.2 million surplus. So taking that same scenario for 2015 would have been a $1.6 million surplus, 2016 $1.4 million, and 17 $1.2 million. So I think we can be very proud of that fact. I think a lot of cities have pushed. I think a lot of cities have run way too close to the edge, and they find themselves now in some difficult financial situations. But we've been blessed not only with having a great economy in Homewood. I've been blessed as a mayor of having you on the council that understands budgets and understands living within our means. So that's what I'm going to ask you to do again. Not that I have to ask you. You've proven that that's just the way we do it. I do want to say publicly, though, I appreciate the amount of work it takes to do that, because it is easy to just say yes to a lot of things that add up to a lot of money at the end of the year. Cash balance on hand as of June 2018. We'll see our general fund checking, $7 million. General public funds investments, $9 million. There's the old reserve for economic uncertainty. Rainy day fund. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Just north of $11 million. That number helps me sleep at night, and I think it does you too. And then just right on down the line, the largest other line items are debt service fund, $9.8 million. I'll give you just a second to go over those. 911, sales tax funds, courts, judicial. Again, a little over $153 million. Mike, make sure you get a good picture of me, that I don't have my mouth open when you're when you post this on West Homewood. It always looks like I slid in from third base. Some kind of crazy thing, like this. Right. Thank you. Thank you. Here's just some kind of highlights and actually what most people are interested in. Our payroll's budgeted this year. I'm proposing a 2% COLA for our employees. I'm proposing that we continue with the commitments that we have on our merits. There's a new required pension rates amounting to increased costs of approximately $373,000. That's a 6% increase in our insurance, and I'm proposing that the city take up half of that 3% and pass the other 3% along to the employees. My budget, again, does not have, and it never does, but assuming, expecting, and knowing we will finish the year with a surplus at the end of next year, as I'm getting ready to do at the end of this year, ask for your consideration to give the employees another bonus to share in our profits. So although you will not see that request in this year's budget, I do want to make sure you know at the end of next year, with a surplus, I would come back again and ask for that to happen. And then due to the city reaching our goal on our employee wellness screens, the city received the best rating, which is preferred. And that saves us a lot of money too on our insurance. So total budgeted revenues, $52.7 million. Total expenditures, $52.7 million. And for the second year in a row, we are balancing our budget without the use or the need to utilize a carryover fund balance as a revenue source. So again, I think that speaks very highly for us, even though in the past we've always used a carryover fund balance to balance the budget. We have never one time used it, but it surely is nice now to be in a position where we can basically do this without having to use a fund balance. There's our total budgeted revenues, $6.4 million. Total expenditures, $8.2 million. And then if you'll just notice down here, Robert has put a note that says our revenue source, our carryover fund balance, will not have to be utilized in this amount if the council decides to delay some funding on projects that can be carried over until next fiscal year. Also, all capital purchases, including our vehicles, which is a little change, are budgeted to be paid for in cash during our 17-18 and not financed. Our capital project highlights, upcoming continued funding for our I-65 Diamond Interchange design. We're still on track for that. We still have funds in to continue our street paving from money approved to be transferred to Capital Projects Fund from Debt Service Fund in the amount of $1 million there. Continued funding of the Greenway 2 construction, engineering for our 18th Street beautification project, and then as requested by council, funding for the Highway 280 pedestrian bridge. Here's our budget summary. All our accounts. Again, I won't bore you going through all of those. If any of you have specific questions. Robert has nicely placed a note at the bottom. Budget summary excludes Fund 06, which is the Board of Education Fund. Be a separate slide for that. Board of Education funding. So during the 18-19 budget, the Board of Education received revenues from the city of Homewood as follows. Our sales tax collections for the city, $8.4 million, and then our $14.2 million for property, personal property taxes, $8.4, bringing a total to our Board of Education funding to almost $17 million, $16.8 million. So concludes the budget. Again, I appreciate and I'll thank you in advance for the work that y'all do going through the numbers that we've provided. Hopefully it'll be a quick process, Chairman Jones. Per our capital plan fiscal policy, I didn't include it in this, but in the binders that we'll give out after the council meeting, we'll have our capital plan on a PowerPoint format for you that'll be in your binders. So, and then Robert's got a good little note here at the end that he let me approve basically. But coming together is a beginning, keeping together is a progress, and working together is success. And I look forward to working with y'all as we kind of go through this process, and hopefully it just gets easier and easier and easier. So, Mr. President, Council, thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate it. Two things. One, were you prepared tonight, Mr. Jones, to offer a schedule for hearings, or?
I'll be sending that out tomorrow.
To all of us.
I need to poll the committee and see when the best availability, but I believe the best times were on Monday, so we're going to try to keep that in place before our regular committee meetings, and then also before council. That seemed to work the last couple of years, but I was going to poll the committee and find out
Good,
the best
good.
day. But I'll send that schedule out tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Now, I had skipped, my mistake, I had skipped the one item that I added to the agenda, which was 270818, request for consideration to authorize the mayor to execute the sale of the property next to 431 Green Springs Highway, requested by you, Mayor. And I think that would take, to discuss that, would take an executive session. How long would you need to share that with us, Mr. Kendrick? 10 minutes? Okay, so the chair would welcome a motion.
Move that we go into executive sessions.
We have a motion from Mr. Jones. Do we?
To
Yes. Second is going to be Mr. McCluskey. So the understanding, of course, is, go ahead, Mr. Kendrick.
The executive session will be limited to discussions on economic development issues.
Right.
Public discussion of which may influence the purchase price or sales price of the real estate.
And we will be back in approximately 10 minutes, okay? Thank you. We have to vote on it?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Good. All right, we are back in session. Do I need to vote? Do we need to vote out of?
Yes, sir. You need to vote to go back into regular session.
Okay, we need to vote to go back in. I'm sorry, motion from Mr. Thames, second from Mr. McCluskey. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. And that is unanimous. All right, the item on the table is 270818, request for consideration to authorize the mayor to execute the sale of the property next to 431 Green Springs Highway, and we will have that specified what the legal address is. And the motion would be to offer this to a national or locally recognized chain, fast food chain. So the chair would welcome a motion in a second. Motion from Mr. Thames, second from Mr. McCluskey. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is unanimous. And we come to this portion of the meeting, Mayor, where it's your opportunity. You think the budget's enough? Okay. Mr. Gwaltney?
Nothing this evening.
Okay. Mr. Thames, I would point out to you that our next Monday is Labor Day. So our desire on the meeting is going to be to start in the afternoon before the council meeting.
So 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Okay.
Sorry.
Does the same rule about finance apply when we do that?
Well, I think finance is going to be a little different this time. Mr. Jones, how much time do you want? An hour? Hour and a half? An hour. So you get 5 to 6. So start.
Stand by that. Yes, that's our council meeting.
Oh, I know. That,
We were gonna, I was gonna propose 4 to 5. on that day.
okay, good. All right.
I'll just need 15 minutes, so 5:15 P&D.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had some item I was going to discuss. It's gone out of my mind as I was thinking about all these meetings moving around. So one thing I did want to mention is that the Ward 2 Town Hall meeting did get shifted and is actually tomorrow night rather than last Thursday. It'll be tomorrow night at 6:30 at the Homewood Church of Christ. It is entirely my fault, Mr. Chairman. It is no way Mr. Wolverton's fault. I did not recognize initially that the first game of the football season was on a Thursday as opposed to a Friday, and my son is a freshman in the Marching Patriot Band, and I was not going to miss his first game. So,
in addition to the fact that the vast majority of Homewood would not have been in Ward 2,
that would be an issue as
your
well.
Son,
yes,
not you.
that is correct. So Mr. Wolverton was kind enough to work with me on changing the date. So it will be tomorrow night at 6:30, Homewood Church of Christ. We're also entertaining a presentation from Red Mountain Park, which, strictly speaking, is not in the city limits of Homewood, but we do have a lot of people in our ward who frequent the park, and they wanted to come out and talk to us about what they were doing and how to take advantage of that. And we really do not have a facility in Homewood similar to Red Mountain Park, so they're not directly competing with us. They are an amenity, not a competitor, is the way we see it. So I was trying to think what the other item was. It's not in my head now. I did want to congratulate the folks who organized the Back to School Bash. It was a great event. Lots of people turned out. I'm sure it was very successful. I don't know what the numbers were on money, but it was a great event, and I appreciate everybody who came out to support the event because, of course, it does support the Homewood High School band. So I did want to mention that as well. And I guess the last item, Mr. Chairman, was just to comment on the briefly on the passing of Senator John McCain too. It's been on my mind quite a bit since he passed away this weekend, and he was just a gentleman that for me represented honor and love of country, and there are any number of issues on which we did not see eye to eye, but it was very easy to see that he was a decent, genuine, patriot is the only word I can use. And he will be missed in the Senate, I know, and I think our politics will be poorer for his absence. So I did want to comment on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Wolverton?
Also just wanted to second the success of Back to School Bash. I know my kids were very entertained for hours on end and slept very, very well that night. So, yeah, it's a great event. I look forward to having the next one in the spring. It's too bad we couldn't do something in the winter, but the weather usually doesn't cooperate. So, I'm looking forward to the next one.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McCluskey, give Mr. Wolverton credit. He said nothing about the ball game.
That's Thames, did you say 5:15? Okay, so I'll do 5:15 to 5:30. I only need 15 minutes for public safety.
Good. Thank you. Mr. Jones?
And for finance, we're going to have, probably going to have budget hearings from 4 to 4:45, and then 4:45 we'll have finance. We just have a few items, but we need to devote most of the hour to digging into the budget, and then we'll have additional meetings set. So nothing further.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Smith?
I will set special issues at 5:30, and I also only need 15 minutes, so 5:30 to 5:45. And despite the fact that I do not have a football player this year, which kind of breaks my heart, the football team did come out and win their first game, 18-7 versus Hueytown over at Sanford. They go to Vestavia this Friday night. you know, I'm not going to put any pressure on them, but we did beat Vestavia last year for the first time in 10 years. So they have a big, you know, they have the, you know, big things to live up to. So, but everybody should go out and support the Patriots this weekend.
Thank you. Mr. White?
Does anyone know if we need to set Public Works for Mr. Wright? I didn't see anything on the committee referral agenda, but I couldn't remember if there was anything that we.
Seems like everything.
Is Greg still, is Walter Scholl or any of those funding issues?
Water stuff, but I thought that was now with Greg, wasn't it?
We've got a council meeting
At
after
6.
Why don't we just set it for 5:45, and if there's nothing there, then we'll have 15 minutes to get ready for council. There you go.
Good idea. Thank you, Mr. White. Ms. Andrews?
Wanted to congratulate Mr. Burgett on becoming a grandfather again. Congratulations to you. And Mr. Limbaugh, you just had a birthday, right?
I did last week.
Happy birthday to Mr. Limbaugh.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You're very kind.
That's all I got.
Thank you. I can honestly say 66 feels no different than 65. So. All right. Thank you all very much. I think this was an amazingly efficient meeting considering the agenda. And with that, thank you for everyone's cooperation and hard work. We're adjourned. Happy Labor Day.